All right. Hello, I'm Dylan.
Welcome back to another episode of Totally Tangential. This week, in honor of episode 10, we're going to be doing some top 10 lists. But before that, as per usual, let's go into our weekly updates. So, Jonathan, how's life? You doing good? You doing fresh? You doing fine?
Like Tony the Tiger, I'm doing pretty okay.
Okay. Yeah, I remember those commercials.
Yeah, you think we're gonna get sponsorships after that?
Yes. What's the name of the cereal again? Frosted
Frosted
Flakes?
Flakes. Yeah, we
Yeah,
both had to think about it for a second.
I'd be interested. Like, I know that there's like the Magic Spoon high protein sponsorships that I've seen for cereal or whatever, but I've never just seen like a plain old like, yeah, this episode of the Joe Rogan podcast is brought to you by Tricks. Tricks are for kids.
Okay, but here's the thing though. Like, I've always thought about, well, not always, that'd be a lie, but I've thought about like what I would be willing to sell my soul for, like in terms of advertisements. Like, you always see HelloFresh, Helix pillows, but I'm like, how come it's never something that people actually just fucking use? Like, where is my I don't know, advertising my, you know what I use very often?
A
Fucking
toothbrush.
Gatorade or
Oh,
like, oh yeah, no, I want to do a toothbrush thing. Yeah, my electric toothbrush I got on Black Friday. Why can't I not be advertising for that? Why does it always have to be for Raid Shadow Legends?
well, I mean, if you want to go to the real bit of it with me with my business admin degree,
Please do.
yeah, well, it's gonna be you don't have to get people to know too much about a product that they know that they need already. The whole idea is you're selling shit to them. So I don't think too many people are like, I'm just missing a mobile game in my life that just lets me raid in the shadows and climb up. I want to be the best. I want to be a legend. I want to be a raid shadow legend. So that's why they probably pay for that, as opposed to like this podcast is brought to you by sleep. You need it.
Hey, can we include that in our episodes from now on?
Yeah, go get your sleep. It's just like I think Tobuscus back in the day, even if I didn't watch him much, I think at the end of every episode he was like, if you sneeze during this video, bless you, or something like that.
Yeah, so we could be meta with it, but nah, I don't know. Like, sometimes some podcasters I have seen advertise for McDonald's, so I will give that one some credit.
Have you? I haven't. Who have you seen with that?
Distractible. They were advertising for McDonald's like spicy chicken sandwich and their classic chicken sandwich.
Did they? I listened to pretty much all of Distractable. Granted, if you listen to enough of it, they it kind of all bleeds together and you forget what they did. But actually, on that topic with weekly catch up stuff, something that I want your opinion on, or if you've heard of it at all, is I know that we both listen to Distractable, or at least have listened to it, which is the Markiplier podcast, for those of you who don't know. But Markiplier has a second podcast called Go My Favorite Sports Team. And I
Wait.
listened to it, and I actually really have been enjoying it. It's kind of like a episode to episode thing based upon what the topic is of the week, whether I'm into it or not. But yeah, it's Markiplier, who doesn't know a lot about sports, and his friend Tyler, who has like a MBA in sports administration or something like that, and basically just kind of bring together the people who really know about sports and the people who are on the outside of sports and trying to find a middle ground.
So I remember Mark jokingly talking about starting a podcast on one episode. I haven't caught up fully on Distractable, admittedly, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize he would actually go on to do it. That actually seems like a pretty good idea for a podcast. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I was thinking about you with it because you being a Tom Brady fan, not a Patriots fan, just a Tom Brady fan.
Excuse me.
Um, that there was an episode on why Tyler's the other guy's name, of why he does not think that Tom Brady is the GOAT, and apparently there's like an ongoing joke, if you're into the Markiplier community, which neither of us are, that for like the past 5 years people just love pissing him off by bringing up Tom Brady.
Well, I mean, he is the goat, but all that aside, yeah, I know Mark very well. Given I would never say that aside from the podcast, I've actively followed him throughout the years, but I've passively followed him. You know, maybe I go on a binge for 1 month where I'm just really into his content and don't watch him again for 6 months.
Hmm.
Like that'll happen, but I've generally kept up with him. But Tyler is one I don't really know in any capacity whatsoever, so I'll have to check it out. And to be fair, I didn't know Wade and Bob much either. Just occasionally when they do like games together. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. But that stuff aside, actual like weekly update things for you. What's been going on?
Did we go on a totally tangent already?
We did totally.
All right, but God, we're gonna have to trademark that. But anyways, this week, let's see, nothing too major happened other than I went back to that same place where I had the legendary air hockey game last time, and this time I had an equally legendary air hockey game for all the wrong reasons.
What are those reasons? Was it strip air hockey? Every time someone scored a point, they had to take off clothes in the middle of the bar?
Oh God. Well, I don't think I would last very long at that game. I'd be like, I have to take my shoe off. I'm out.
Oh my God.
But all jokes aside, nah. So me and the person I was playing with were pretty drunk at that point, and we got very into the game, and we accomplished something I've never once seen done before in air hockey ever. We broke the puck.
You broke the puck?
Yeah, we were hitting it so fast, so aggressively, and I went flying toward my edge of the table. I hit it, and it just split right in two. So we had to like awkwardly walk up to the front desk and be like, "Hey, does this ever happen?" And they're like, not really." But they gave us another puck, so I guess they were prepared for the worst, and we continued playing. Thankfully, we managed to only break one puck, but I've never seen that happen before. I didn't realize how into that game I was getting.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, not to dog on your strength or anything, but I'm sure some of it might have been the fact that you guys were going hard, but also, if they've had, like, the same puck in use for years, I'm sure that pucks get to a point where they just wear down and eventually snap.
No, I'm just that fucking strong, bro.
Oh, yeah, you and all 112 pounds.
15, baby.
Oh, he bulking up.
But nah, another thing that happened there was there was Guitar Heroes 2-player, and there's this one kid who was just going ham on it for a while. My friend decided like to play with the kid, Guitar Hero to be clear. So eventually it was my turn to go up, and I played 2 songs with him because one credit gets you 2 songs or something like that. First song, kid crushed me because I was drunk and everything, and it's been a while since I played Guitar Hero.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the second
just throwing out your excuses.
No. The second game, I went like Eye of the Tiger training montage, like Goku, like going through his hyperbolic time chamber shit. And I remember deep down, wait, I may not be a Guitar Hero player, but I am a rhythm game player. All my time at DDR just like came back to me at once, like a dramatic thing where the camera pans straight into the person's face and the background's all blurry. Like I awakened.
And you started using your feet on the Guitar Hero thing like DDR.
That's exactly what I did. And I kicked that kid's ass. I doubled his score that second game, which I think he doubled my score the first game, to be fair. So we're pretty neck and neck. But point being, like, I was feeling it.
Nice. Well, I mean, in his defense, 0 is still 0, so.
Yeah. We both scored 0. That was the big takeaway.
Yeah.
But no, all jokes aside, just normal fun things there. I don't know, just a good fun time.
Yeah. Sounds good. Something that I think this affects you, but is a podcast for us, and not as a podcast for us, is an update for us. And man, my brain is just shit.
I was like, you already mentioned the Markiplier podcast. Is there another podcast?
No, dude, I stayed up till like 3 a.m. last night, and my mind is still just wavering. But something that affects both of us, I'm pretty sure. You can correct me on your situation, because I know with you have special things. But
student loans, yeah.
The student loans, which I was happy to see that it was officially announced. And on top of that, it's $10,000, but up to $20,000 if you got Pell Grant. So I signed in. I got like $1,000 of Pell Grant. So not much Pell Grant, but I at least received some, which presumably it doesn't say you have to like receive X amount of Pell Grant. It just says as long as you received Pell Grant. So hopefully all of my student loans get wiped away.
And even if not, the 10K should take out the vast majority of it.
Yeah, I have 14K in total. So 10K will be 75%?
So with only 4K left, considering as far as I'm aware you don't have high living expenses, you can just destroy that 4K pretty easily.
Yeah, but also since the interest isn't super high, don't feel like killing myself. Like, okay, I have 4K in the bank. I'm gonna spend it all and go down to $0. But then I don't have any student loans.
Well, so what are you spending your money on? Do you just like sinking in stocks now, or what? I don't know why I
No,
stuttered so much.
stocks, Raggy.
Yeah, no, that I don't have a stutter. That kind of took me off guard, to be honest.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I spend it on food, I spend it on the basics and all that stuff, and beyond that, like, I'll buy some manga from work to time. She and I will buy like a board game or a video game to play together. Like, the reason why I stayed up last night till 3 a.m. is I bought a game on Steam and I was binge playing that. But no, most of it I don't do too much with beyond like the basic necessities. So what I'm trying to go for right now is just oh, excuse me, is that paying rent every month. If you're paying $1,900 a month, it just kind of goes into the ether. Where if you end up getting a mortgage at a place, even if the interest is a little bit, and let's say that you lose $10,000 in the long run to interest or $20,000 in the long run to interest, if you're paying $1,900 a month and it's just going straight to your mortgage, at least you get that money back in the end. So I'm just trying to save up for a down payment on something.
Oh, that way you and I can get a podcasting house.
Yes, exactly. It's like, girlfriends, who needs those? I just need my boy Jonathan.
Hey, who said that she can't be the third member of the podcast?
Oh, yes, that sounds great. And then your mom can be the fourth podcast member.
Hell yeah, the two biggest loves of our lives.
Oh, God.
But all jokes aside, no, honestly, that's respectable. Like, you gotta save for something, so fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, right now, what my goal is if I'm able to get like, $10,000, $20,000 saved up, then I want to try to switch to part time so I can try taking the boxing stuff pretty seriously, because presumably with the amount of time that it would take me to save up that much money, I would be able to have gotten in good enough shape by that point to actually try joining a boxing gym, because I've been going during my lunch break to the gym on the other side of the building 5 days a week. Some days are more rest days than others, but I've been making sure to keep up on cardio for sure and other muscle things. So I'm trying to stick to it.
That'll be good. Kind of going back a minute, but I was actually wondering, are you just straight like stashing the money in an account, like a bank account, or are you actually trying again at stocks, or like what's the situation there?
I mean, I don't have too much to say, too much saved up at the moment, so I'll tell you, not much is doing anything with that. But right now, it's just in a bank account. But she transfers money to Korea a lot, and because of America having like super inflation right now, basically, if you transfer over like $100 to Korea, it will come out as being like the equivalent of $110. So thinking about just like sending X amount of dollars to her a month to transfer to the Korean account, and that way when things hopefully stabilize in America, it can come back and basically have an extra 10-20% on top of it.
Yeah, honestly, that's fair.
Yeah,
currency rates and exchanges, but either way, sounds pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. But that aside, unless you got anything more for yourself update wise, I'm sure we can jump into our top 10s here.
I got one more update for you.
Oh, hit me with it.
My patient brought back some more salsa.
Oh, yeah. Was it just as good as ever?
It actually was. So I'm not trying to jump into a whole topic here, but so last time we tried the ghost pepper salsa, and I didn't realize he also gave us a habanero one. So I guess I got the details wrong last time when I told you what kind they were. Mm-hmm. But I tried the habanero and I tried the ghost pepper. This time he brought us 2 of each.
Oh, okay.
So I took the ghost pepper home because I prefer the ghost pepper, but both are insanely good. The habanero has a little bit of sweetness to it too, which is good depending on what kind of flavor profile you're going for. So
is that why you gained the 3 pounds? Is just like if he's bringing you a salsa every week, you're just like, well, I gotta have chips with these. So you've been trying to get through your bottle of salsa every week.
Those chips are a vessel for the salsa. Like, this stuff is so damn good. I told him last week, I was like, yeah, I really liked that salsa. Thank you. He said he'd bring some more. I didn't think he'd bring us 4 jars for free. Like, that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You can start your salsa jar collection. Not to go too off on a tangent, but I know that there was this one guy on Webtoon. I can't remember his name right now. It's I think it might just be Shenanigan or something along that line. But he makes like weekly comedy comic strips and that stuff, and occasionally he'll post things like pictures of his house if it's relating to whatever he's drawing in a comic, and he just like has so many salsa jars that he refuses to recycle, but he doesn't want to throw them in the trash. So he's just like, okay, here's my salsa jar vase, here's my salsa jar cup, here's my salsa jar this. So he had like a picture one time of just like all of his salsa jars, and he legitimately has like nearly about 100 salsa jars just throughout his house.
That's fucking absurd. I love that.
Yeah, so that can be you. But now that we got our weekly salsa update out of the way, yes, jumping into the top tens. So with
Yeah.
that, I told you that since both of us, one, are lazy, two, are kind of not very cultured, it wasn't specifically top 10 movies, top 10 games. It was just like top 10 media overall. So number 10 could be a game, number 9 could be a porno. Like it can be whatever, man.
Wait, I could have chosen porn?
Yeah, I mean, if you know any by name, then yeah, feel free to revise your list right now.
Yo, so there was this one. Not just kidding. Not trying to get this taken down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my top 10 favorite episodes of Totally Tangential are nah. I mean, all jokes aside, before we get into it, I will say I liked the idea of it being top 10 for everything, because I feel like if I just gave like a top 10 movies, top 10 games, and whatever, you would know what to expect considering how well we know one another over the years. So at least it being kind of a conglomerate of all of it together, it gives us an opportunity, bring some surprises.
Yeah, well, I am interested because I don't know what your top 10 is going to be in total, but there's a couple things in my mind that I'd be surprised if they weren't in your top 10, and I'll be interested in seeing where they fall on there.
Yeah. Funny thing, I didn't actually order them. I kind of just said this is my 10 and I'll figure it out.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's see how it goes. Then, giving you no time to think. Give me your number 10 right now.
All right. So the number 10 I'm going with, this one's kind of a recent movie, but Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, I've heard very good things about it, but I have not watched it. Tell me and the audience what it's about and why you feel that it's deserving of your prestigious top 10.
So it presents itself as kind of a comedy multiverse kind of thing about a mundane everyday life person,
Mm-hmm.
but it spirals into genuinely one of the most unique, creative, and absolutely fucking heart-shattering and heartwarming movies I've ever seen. I can genuinely say I've never seen a single movie in my entire life like it.
Okay.
So, like, if you want just a truly unique experience, and it won't resonate with everyone because it is very unique, but I would recommend it to you. It is genuinely such a great, fantastic movie. And
All right.
yeah, it just delves into really amazing themes that I can't get into without just straight up spoiling the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, dude, you gotta watch it, considering like I don't know, you and I have a thing for like, I don't know, just kind of blind going into movies sometimes and loving it, so maybe you would like it.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot with enough that I've heard about it, and mean if it makes your top 10. Something that I am curious, though, with that having popped up and that being fairly recent, something that I had a bit of a hard time with my list is if something's too recent, at least for me, it's like, well, is this really my top 10, or is it just because it's recent enough that it's just in my mind? So, like, for this with you, did that pop in your mind at all, or are you just like, no, regardless of it being recent or not, I feel like this is just good enough, it has to be top 10?
Well, the thing is, I got to number 7 on my list, and like I got my top 7 down in like 5 minutes, and I spent the next hour and a half trying to get my last 3.
Oh god.
Not because I like couldn't figure out 3 things to put on, it's because I was having that exact struggle. I'm like, how am I defining my top 10? Because like there's some things that my childhood happened that like made me who I am, and like just absolutely amazing pieces of media that have stuck with me. But if I were to watch it today, it would not hold up, and I've stuck some of those in my honorable mentions.
Gotcha.
So it's just like,
I did the opposite, man. I kind of gave in to the nostalgia, and I might have given things extra points for nostalgia.
well, don't get me wrong, I have one in there that definitely fits that category, but it's just with this movie in particular, I put it in my top 10 because yes, it is recent. I'm not even sure it's even necessarily one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, though I do think it is.
Mhm.
Instead, I thought of it like, this is a movie that's going to resonate with me and I will remember because I've never seen anything like it, and I don't really think I ever will again.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so we'll call that number 10.
All right. Well, for my number 10, mine is also a movie, and I might have told you of this one before. It's a Korean movie, and it's called Luck Key. Not lucky, but 2 words, Luck Key.
Like, a key that you stick in a door, right?
Yes. So, tell me if I've told you about this before, but it's a comedy, and basically the premise is there's this guy who's more or less his life just sucks. He's an aspiring actor in Korea, but like a background actor, he's doing nothing with his life, doesn't have a girlfriend, just life is shit. So he's like, I'm gonna kill myself, but if I'm gonna kill myself, at least let's look nice before we do that. You don't want to greet God all clean and all that stuff. So he goes to the public bathhouse, and basically this big tough looking dude is in there, slips, and he drops his key to his locker, and he's like, hey, if I'm gonna kill myself anyway, let's have some fun, let's see what's going on. So he takes that guy's key and basically switches keys with him while he's unconscious on the floor.
Right.
And it's just like, shit, this guy's got a Ferrari, this guy's house is this. And we kind of see in the beginning but this guy doesn't see, it's like, is this guy like a fucking assassin or something along those lines? So he's just going into his apartment, it's like, okay, I'll live in here until I get found out and have to kill myself. It's like, oh my god, why does this guy have a secret room with like spy gear and guns and all of this shit? Meanwhile, the seeming assassin dude wakes up but basically has short-term memory loss, and it's like, oh well, I guess this is my house. Oh, was I planning to kill myself? What are my aspirations? Oh, I want to be an actor. Okay, so he goes in, he's in like a background for some kung fu movie kind of thing, and they're like, okay, let's see what you got. And then he pulls out these amazing martial arts, and it's just like, holy shit, it's like you're a professional assassin or something.
Yeah.
And it's just funny of like them having the switch scenarios, and obviously certain things bring them together, because obviously the guy's memory starts coming back. This guy's like, who the fuck's key did I steal, and all of that stuff. But it's a good movie, and I've watched it enough times, and it's been enough years since I've seen it, and I still think of it as something that's good, that I thought like, this is deserving of a number 10.
Okay, surprisingly, I actually don't think you have told me about that.
All right, yeah, if you're ever looking for a comedy and don't mind too much about reading subtitles, I'd give it a shot.
No, honestly, like, I feel like people mention reading subtitles as kind of a barrier, and I do find it as a little bit of a barrier, because if you're reading, you might not be taking in the nuance of like actors' expressions and backgrounds and everything. But honestly, once you've like watched one or two movies or series or whatever, it's such an afterthought. It's honestly not a barrier for me whatsoever. I don't mind it.
All right, for sure. Well, with that out of the way, hit me with number 9.
All right. So in my top 10, I tried to keep it free of anything that I thought you would put in your top 10 for the sake of discussion.
Interesting. There's one thing that I expected for us both in our top 10, but
so I will say this might not be a truly 100% representative top 10, because there's some things that are going to be left out.
Okay.
But there is one thing I did leave in just because it resonated with me so much. And it is also a Korean movie.
Okay.
Not Parasite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew that would be on yours, so I didn't want to go into it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Train to Busan.
Oh, interesting. I remember you telling me that you watched it, but I'm surprised that reaches number 9 for you. Yeah, tell me, tell people what it's about, but then tell me why that reaches number 9 in your mind.
Yeah, so, a man who's not the greatest person in the world nor greatest father in the world gets stuck in a zombie apocalypse, and he's trying to take his daughter and the people he meets along the way to safety on a train, basically. And this movie, I chose it to be number 9 because I think it's the pinnacle of zombie movies, like as an entire genre and everything.
Okay.
And out of everything, it really showed the redemption of characters and what separates a good person from a bad person. But more than any zombie movie I've ever seen, it really pushed into I think what makes zombie movies good is the idea that the zombies aren't the problem, like the humans are the real problem. And this movie was the one that like really delved into that more than like any other zombie movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, for sure. From what I remember of the movie, obviously the zombies are killing people and doing all of this, but the biggest thread in the movie is like, okay, this guy wants to kind of be the boss and rule over everyone in this scenario, and not everyone's for that. And I know that this didn't necessarily come up, but as far as this stuff goes, of like rations in movies or things like that, like more often than not, the big issue when the zombie apocalypse hits is you get in a good enough safe area where it's just like, oh shit, now the people that I'm dealing with are the biggest issue.
Yeah, and honestly, Nah, this movie like resonated with me. I fucking sobbed uncontrollably at certain
Hmm.
parts of that movie. Like this thing, like genuinely, if I had to recommend a Korean movie, like this would be up there for anyone who like doesn't hate the idea of zombie movies.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for
even
sure.
then, for someone who's against it, I might be like, trust me, bro, this is the one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I was not expecting that in your top 10, but I can appreciate it.
What can I say? I have a few tricks up my short sleeves.
Oh, that's terrible. Um,
Let's hear
but
your number 9,
yes,
Mr.
my
Lawrence
number
Pierce.
9 is a manga slash anime called Monster. It's by I don't remember the first name of the author, but it's by a very famous author called Urasawa, and made a lot of big stuff in like the late 80s, early 90s, and a lot of their stuff is even kind of themed around just older stuff, 70s, 80s, and so on. And basically, the concept of what this is there's a doctor in like he's Japanese, but I'm pretty sure he's working in Germany during the time of like post World War II era, but not too far past World War II. And he kind of has an issue with the hierarchy that's going on. If people are like, yeah, you know, if a kid comes in or if a governor comes in, you better heal that governor. It doesn't matter who came in first because you know everyone's life is not equal. And he's like, oh, well, that's kind of
Oh,
bullshit, isn't it?
yeah.
So so he decides, like, you know what, I'm not going to compromise my my morals. I'm going to save in, you know, people on a first come first serve basis, more or less. So there was a like double homicide where these twins, their parents were both murdered, and the boy was like severely injured. He was on death's door, and he comes in, and then like 5 minutes later, the mayor of whatever town in Germany comes in, and they're like, "Oh, you got to save this mayor," and he's like, "No, I refuse. This boy came in first. His life isn't worth any less than the mayor's." So he saves the boy's life, and in turn, the mayor ends up dying. And a lot of people at the hospital end up getting really pissed at him for that. But not too long after, a lot of the doctors who were judging him and the administrator and everything get murdered, and he kind of becomes a prime suspect of like, okay, you didn't like working with these people, they were giving you shit, like blah blah blah, did you do anything? But nothing really comes out of it. It's just kind of curious of like, okay, you know, we don't have any full proof, but a lot of people are suspecting the guy. A few years pass by, and he gets another patient that comes in. He's kind of moved up in the medical world a bit and everything, and the patient kind of having some like crazy panic attacks about like, oh, there's this monster, this guy, he's a monster, blah blah blah. And he ends up saving this guy's life, but he breaks out of the hospital or something. It's been quite a while since I've watched it, so I forget the exact order of events or how they happen. But he ends up following this guy. He's like, no, you know, I'm going to save your life. I'm going to make sure that everything's okay and all that stuff. And he catches up to the guy basically in this abandoned building, and he's being held at gunpoint by the boy that he saved, you know, 7 years ago. And he basically finds out of just like, oh shit, you know, this boy was the one who murdered his parents. This boy is the one who murdered the doctors and did all of this stuff. This boy has some like very serious mental issues. And the boy's just like, oh, you know, don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. I couldn't kill the man who saved my life or whatever. But after the boy, who's now at, you know, 17, 18 or whatever, murders the guy that the doctor just tried to save, he boy goes away, but the doctor is presumed for being the murderer because the shit that happened 7 years earlier, because he was the last one to see him. He was in this abandoned area, and he was the one who was found next to the guy. So basically everyone thinks that the doctor's a murderer, so he kind of has to go in hiding, and he has to be like, you know what, I was the one who gave this boy his life back. I'm going to be the one who takes this guy's life away. And he basically, you know, hunts down over Germany this boy. But it's also just interesting because it's, you know, during the post World War II era, and, you know, Nazis did some real crazy shit. So you find out all the things about this boy's past, where he was like raised in an orphanage that was basically made to like brainwash them and make like the perfect soldier, Hitler 2.0 and all of that stuff, and how the boy is, you know, has this like psychological trauma of he kills people, but he's also just a scared child on the inside at the same time. And it's a very interesting like murder mystery, you know, figuring out the whole world and circumstances around, and it's really good.
All right, that sounds like one. It has a lot of plot twists to it for sure,
Yeah.
and I don't know, that feels like there's a lot of room for some interesting things to go on. It sounds suspenseful.
Yeah, it is. I think you'd like it, but I know with you have a hard time getting through shows too fast, and I think it's like 75 episodes in an anime. So yeah, I don't expect you to watch it anytime soon, but if you ever do, I recommend it.
Man, one day I'm gonna be better at watching these shows, man. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, but solid number 9. And with that, we're gonna get to an even better number 8.
Ooh,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This
SpongeBob.
This is where we make the exception for childhood things which may not hold up to this day, but you know what probably my favorite childhood video game was?
Madden.
No, but that was a pretty good one.
What is it then?
My favorite was probably Barnyard PS2.
Oh God, I've heard you talk about this so much, and I don't know. I just hated Barnyard as a show, so I'm not even willing to give the game a chance.
Nah. You don't understand. This thing is Stardew Valley meets a GTA meets Spyro. Like, it is all the good parts, to be clear.
Okay.
It is amazing. But I mean, all jokes aside, I genuinely did love it. It gave me my first pseudo open world. I don't know. It had so many mini games you could play, had money collection and upgrading systems, had the lovable barnyard story. It's just, I genuinely loved that game way more than I should, and I probably replayed it like 4 or 5 times, and I gotta replay it sometime today because it's been like years. I gotta do that again.
I don't know. I have a hard time imagining it lives up, but also you love some ironically terrible things, so who knows?
Excuse me. It is not terrible. It is unironically good.
Okay, if you say so. Well, I really love comparing our number 8s because they're clearly on the same level.
Yeah.
For me, I chose Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, they're both like, I don't know, cornerstones in American culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I had a hard time because I was trying to think of like, okay, I don't want to just throw in things that are like, oh, everyone knows this is super famous. If you put like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter as your top 3, it's like, great, okay, you grew up in the 90s. We understand. But with Shawshank, like, I've rewatched it enough times and it never gets boring. It never gets old. It's just made so well overall where like I may not have a personal connection with it, but I enjoy watching that movie and I enjoy rewatching that movie where as a whole it's so good and I think it deserves at least number 8 on my list.
Okay. I've never actually seen that movie, but literally, yeah, every person who's seen it has been absolutely in love with it.
Do you know the synopsis of it generally?
I literally do not know what it's about. I think there's a dog in it, right?
No, there's no dog.
Oh shoot, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Cujo or something? Who knows?
You're thinking of Scooby-Doo. Shawshank is about this guy. He was like an accountant or something like that. His wife gets murdered. He's a fairly unemotional guy, and everybody's like, okay, you were drunk outside her place with her guy that she was having an affair with. You had a gun at the time. You killed her. And it's like, no, I was drunk, and I decided, it's not worth it. I'm not in the right mindset. I walked away, and they're like, yeah, that's bullshit. You came there drunk with a gun. She's dead now and they have bullets in their body. Like, you're going to prison. So he goes to prison presumably as a guilty man, but he says through and through that he did not do it. And he goes there and he's kind of a quiet guy, and prison, not the greatest place in the world, so gets picked on a bit, gets raped a little bit, all the prison classics.
Yep.
But in prison he meets Morgan Freeman and his group of friends, and
the actor Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman was there doing Morgan Freeman black holes or whatever. And cool. Pretty much joins their friend group. The people at the prison are really abusive and all that stuff, but he's just like, hey, I heard that you have troubles with this. I was like the VP of my accounting firm. Maybe, if you get me and my friends some beers, or let us, not get fucking whipped and beat to death and all of that stuff, then I can help you out with this and that. So he kind of like works his way up in the prisoner hierarchy of the place. But at the end of the day, he never changes his mind that I am an innocent man. And everyone, at first kind of jokes of like, oh yeah, everyone here is innocent. But they're like, oh shit, is this guy actually innocent? And
Don't let me know how. Yeah, no spoilers. I do want to watch it.
yeah, of course. But basically, it's just like, okay, well, how can we get this guy out of here? It's his journey throughout the prison and the people that he meets and the relationships and all of that stuff. And yeah, it's just a really great movie overall.
Fair enough. I'm gonna have to check it out. Honestly, it's one of those movies that I've been sitting on that I keep meaning to watch. It's on my movie bucket list, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I just haven't found honestly, I have found the right day. I just don't know why I haven't gotten around to it. There's no explanation.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad that Shawshank and Barnyard are truly equivalent.
Oh man, I looked it up, and yeah, I got my Stephen King movies mixed up. I was thinking of Cujo, the one with the dog, which you should look up a picture of Cujo. And then,
I know Cujo.
Yeah, that is. How did I pull that one off?
I don't know. You're crazy, but yeah, go ahead for your number 7. I hope that it's actually better than Barnyard.
No, Barnyard was definitely the one glaring thing on the list. Don't worry.
Okay.
Since you went with the movie, I'll go with the movie on this one too. This is definitely one of my favorite movies, though it's hard to. I'm not gonna say it's objectively a great movie. The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I've heard about this one. Doesn't this one have Emma Watson in it?
Yes, Emma Watson. She is one of the leads in the movie.
Yeah, I think I remember when you watched this. I think I asked for the storyline, but yeah, give me a general rundown to refresh and tell me why you think it deserves being up there.
Yeah, I don't remember their names, so I'm gonna make it their names on the spot. So I'll call the main guy Percy because he's the same one who's Percy Jackson.
Okay.
So Percy goes to high school, but he's introvert, loner, clearly has some kind of past to him, and he doesn't really know how to fit in, but goes to a party, meets 2 people who learn to accept him for who he is after learning about his trauma after he gets high. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of him just learning to come to grips with his past, growing up. It's kind of a coming of age film, but with like it's not the fun coming of age film, to be honest. It delves into a lot of things about without majorly spoiling the movie, just a lot of stuff about mental illness, health, and trauma, and learning to cope with it. And it's genuinely just makes me burst in tears every single time. It is such a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine why that would be on your list, just from the standpoint of with you, the way that you grew up and everything, not just young, but also in high school. I feel like even if the exact experiences aren't one-to-one, I can understand how certain emotions might be very relatable to you.
Yeah, and I mean, even like relatableness aside, I feel like every coming of age film is always like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, yeah, kind of just a funny hijinks, goofy film. Mm-hmm. But this is the one that kind of spun it in the opposite direction to really tell a story and give a message, and I kind of really appreciate that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, well, for me, my number 7 is you mentioned it earlier as one that you decided not to put on your list. Parasite. Yes, it's Parasite. The Korean movie, great like thriller, drama, and all that stuff came out. What, 2019? Was it 2019 or 2020?
Definitely 19. It couldn't have been 20.
Okay. Well, it could have been early 20 because COVID didn't really blow up in America until like March. But either way, we saw it, end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And it was a great movie overall. Like, it's something where I enjoyed it so much. We both enjoyed it because we actually saw it together. And even the hour ride back, I mean, we would just not stop talking about it in the car. And I just loved it as a whole. I can't put it higher on my list just because it's a hard movie to rewatch. It's one of those things where, like, once you know what happens at the end and when everything is based upon suspense, it's like, okay, well, I'm not worried what's going to happen next because I know what happens next. But just from a one viewing experience, like, it deserves to be on a top 10 list.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this is a movie where you can't even like describe its premise without just spoiling the plot. It's so out there, and it does such a good job of keeping it cohesive.
Yeah, it really does. But
I recommended it to my coworkers who don't normally watch Korean films, and they just fucking loved it. So
I'm glad to hear. I mean, it is or it was like the first international film to win a insert award here that I don't remember.
Yeah. The MVP award.
Yeah, the MVP awards.
Yeah. But yeah, no. It it definitely has that appeal. It's just I think if anything's going to be the gateway drug for people to get into those, international films, that'd be a good choice.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, now top 6. We're almost in our top 5. Hit me with it.
Yeah, I'll hit you, baby, one more time.
Okay.
My number 6, since you chose something Korean, haha, deja vu. I'm gonna go something Korean as well.
Oh, I'm surprised you have another Korean thing on your list. You're not doing Parasite. You already did Train to Busan. What? Or is it music?
Is it?
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. I will never know how to pronounce her name, but Yaren Bake.
Yes.
Like, without a doubt, she is my most listened to artist, like the last 3 years, like minimum. But like, I don't mean by a small margin. I mean by an overwhelming margin. She is more or less responsible for completely shifting an entire taste in music for me.
Yeah, I do know because I'm not sure if I was the one who got you into K-pop, but at least I know that I was someone who introduced you to a lot more K-pop. But I didn't introduce you to her specifically, but I do know that like once you found out about her stuff, she was like by far the person of like, oh, she came out with a new album. I loved every song. Oh,
Yeah.
this, that, and you just like you really, really love everything that she does.
It's amazing. Like every time she releases something new, I have a little bit of trepidation because I'm like, what if it doesn't live up to it? And then it fucking like smashed my expectation. I'm like, how the fuck did she do that? Literally every single time. But it's just so interesting because it's such a unique like. It's not that I've never heard it before, but I can't find anything like it. Like it's an interesting mix of like R&B and then fuck, I don't know. She has weird like indie rock in it too, but then it's also like dramatic and cinematic. I can't find anything quite like it. I've tried really hard. So I've just been fucking hooked on her and her voice is so good. Like she's the one person like literally the one artist where if she came to America to perform, I am going. Like I don't care. Well, I do mildly care how much it costs, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, that's understandable, but
Like-
yeah, I will keep my eye out on that because I would also be down to go to a concert like that, especially because you've never even gone to a concert, right?
Not a real one, no.
Yeah, only a
But
fake
not-
one.
You get what I mean. But it's just like I don't know. A lot of my favorite musicians are international, particularly from like England and other places, and they
Mhm.
do come to America quite often. In fact, my favorite band of all time is coming to California in like a month or so.
Oh, big time
And-
rush.
Yeah, Big Time Rush. I love those Brits right there. But I'm not gonna see them because I don't know. Like I don't really know why I'm not. I'm just not. But if she came, I would do it. I don't care.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, so she definitely has to crack that because I think my Spotify Wrapped like the past 2 years, like my most listened to song, like artist she crushes it. Most listened to songs, she's been like 3 out of the top 5. And it's like, what the fuck? I'm like addicted. That's not good.
Yeah. Well, spoiler for me, I don't have any music stuff on my list. I was tempted to throw in 1,000 Foot Crutch just to piss you off with War of Change at number 1, but I decided not to go for that. But yeah, I know that music has always been more impactful in your life and more something that you've cared about than I have. So I'll be interested if any more music pops up or if she's really the only one who ends up breaking your list.
You will have to see, but I have to see your number 6.
Yes. Well, speaking of breaking, The Breaker, number 6.
Okay. I was thinking, I'm like, you don't like Breaking Bad that much.
No, I do not. But number 6, The Breaker, it's a Korean manhwa, which for you uncultured swines and me being my weeaboo Koreaboo self, is just manga, but Korean.
Big plot twist.
Exactly. But I really love a lot of martial arts, manga, anime, stuff like that. It can be inspirational. It can be fun. It's very shonen where you'll have big bad villain. They work their way up to them and all that stuff. But my favorite thing about The Breaker is that like the main character gets really strong really fast, as a lot of people do in this kind of stuff. But there's always someone above him and he loses most of his like big fights. But the thing that I find so amazing about it is he always intimidates the other people because his strongest aspect is his willpower, where he could like, have being like beat into a wall for the past 2 hours, just had his head slammed into something, not been able to land a single punch. And he's just like, I am not giving up until I am dead. And, he just always has this like look in his eyes, eye of the tiger kind of thing. And that's always where like some of the coolest moments of the manhwa come from, of like, I can kill this kid at any time, but I am intimidated by him. Like he should be dead. He should be crying for his life. He should be this, but he keeps on pushing through. And it's an interesting twist that they add on top of the stereotypical like martial arts shonen style.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can respect that. Like, it's not him traditionally overwhelming and everything, but also unlike it doesn't sound like a Dragon Ball Z where they're just pulling shit out of their ass to make Goku win. But even if it is sheer determination, it sounds better made and more gripping, at least.
Yeah, the only downside is like part 1 came out in 2013, 100 chapters or something. Part 2 went on from like 2014 to 2017, 300 chapters or something. Part 3 is supposed to have, come out, oh, we're going to go on a year break, and then it's going to back, we're going to do a different manhwa in the meantime, and then we'll come back. And fast forward 5 years later, and they're like, yeah, we'll get to it at some point. It's like, shit, I want to know what happens next.
Okay, actually, I want to talk about this. So you're including something that isn't done yet, which is kind of a bold move, because it could just fucking sink on the landing.
I mean, yes and no. I'll say this. It's broken up into like series. There's the Breaker, which is part 1, the Breaker New Waves, which is part 2. Still main character, but like the overall shift of it kind of changes because things happen with his master and blah, blah, blah. Part 3 is going to be the final part from where the story is going and everything. And there's going to be another big shift with it. But just off of part 1 and part 2, because part 2, I mean, for all we know, there's never going to be a part 3. It's been 5 years, but even without a part 3, enough has been concluded. The storyline is good enough and all of that stuff where it still like breaks a top 10 list for me.
Okay. Honestly, that's fair, because I feel like for a lot of people, something like Game of Thrones would make their top 10, even if it just fucking crashed at the end. Because just how amazing it supposedly was those first, I don't know, like 6 seasons, I want to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know if I could really take a show fucking up its ending. I've never actually experienced that, because by and large, I've always watched shows after they've ended, and so I know if it has a satisfying conclusion. Like Better Call Saul was the first show I actively watched while it was airing and was actually emotionally invested in, like my entire life basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, that was kind of a terrifying experience, but seems like you're satisfied with what you got, and I can respect that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm waiting for part 3, but I'm satisfied with what I got for now, at least. But yeah, hit me. We're in the top 5s now.
Top 5. Here we go. I'm gonna throw in a video game here. You've seen surprisingly little of those on this list. In fact, the only one you've seen is Barnyard.
Yes, depressingly so.
Hey man, that says something about the sheer quality of that game.
Yeah.
A game of similar quality though, Red Dead Redemption 1.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me too much now that I think about it. I know that you love Red Redemption 1 and even 2. So yeah, tell me about it.
Honestly, the hard part was choosing between 1 and 2. Especially since, in my opinion, they actually tell quite similar stories, and that'll come up later on in my top 10. But
why did you add top 2 or number 2 in your top 10 later?
You will see, or you will not see.
Oh
It'll
my
keep
God.
you in suspense.
All
What
right.
I will say is, it was hard choosing between the two, and in fact, I think story beat wise, minute to minute, 2 is probably better than 1, and I'm choosing 1 solely for the story because 2 had better gameplay in basically every single way. So you might be like, Jonathan, how could you possibly justify choosing 1 under those circumstances? It's just because at the end, the message that both games were going for resonated with me a lot more from the first game, to where to this day I can still cry at the ending of the first game, and I can still think on it and dwell on it and analyze it, and it's on my mind. And I finished that game when I was like, I don't know, late middle school, early high school. So we're talking about nearly a decade ago, and it still lives in my head rent free. I'm an accommodating landlord.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also goes to show how good it is, because that I mean, there might be nostalgia for it, but it can't be pure nostalgia, because if Red Dead 2 is similar in a lot of ways, but came out 2 or 3 years ago, and you loved that one just as much, if not more, I guess we'll see on your list, then yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that it's held up in every way.
Yeah, and honestly, just the messages it tried to take home, not going to go too into details, but just cycles of violence and crime and intergenerational things there. It just ooh, and then what it takes to redeem a man and if a man can be redeemed. Like it's just genuinely asks some very demanding questions out of its players, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah. And let's see, that's my number 5, yeah?
Yeah, number 5. Why are you going straight into your number 4 of Red Dead 2?
Nah, that'd be funny. Nah, let's hear your number 5.
Yeah, so I will say from number 6 on, it does get into Weeb Hour. All of the movies in that shit are past.
I feel
So
okay, no,
yeah,
go ahead.
but number 5 for me, I don't think you've ever watched this one. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not, but it's called Yu Yu Hakusho.
I have heard of it and I know nothing about it. I always lump it with stuff like Inuyasha and Sailor Moon, despite how different they are.
I mean, they're from a similar era, so I'll give you
Yeah.
that.
I guess I was keeping it together by era was the right way to put it.
Yeah, for sure. But I love it. It's a shonen, like Naruto, Dragon Ball, stuff like that. But this one, I think Yu Yu Hakusho might have come out in like the late 80s to early 90s. But basically the general premise, or at least how it starts out, is there's this kid who's like in middle school. He's a real ruffian, doesn't have his dad, lives with his single mom. He gets in fights all of the time, and everyone kind of thinks he's an asshole except this one girl who was real straight-laced but still obviously has a crush on him and all that stuff, very stereotypical stuff. But one day he's walking down the street and everyone thinks he's an asshole, but he's not a complete asshole. He's just got some anger issues.
He's a
and
redeemable asshole.
exactly, and he sees this kid kicking the ball along the sidewalk, and kid kicks the ball into the street on accident, goes running after the ball as a car's speeding down the way, and he's like, oh shit, dumbass kid. So he jumps in front of the car and pushes the kid out of the way to save him, and he essentially dies. And he dies, and the Grim Reaper ends up coming around and is just like, oh we weren't expecting you to die. We like with the plans and everything, the car was just gonna skid by the kid and he was gonna survive with like a bruise on his arm or something. You came in out of nowhere and that really, fucked up our plans with stuff. So, it's not really your time to die yet. We hadn't planned for this. So we'll give you a chance. You can just be dead for like another month or so, have someone take care of your body. You can talk to people in their dreams and that stuff, and as long as everything goes good, you'll be back alive in a month. That stuff happens. There's some storyline in there, but doesn't take more than like a few episodes.
Wait, was his body decomposing during that month?
No, it was kind of just like it wasn't decomposing, but they wanted to make sure no one cremated it.
Okay, I was gonna say, do you know how horrific it would be if he comes back in a month and the flesh is just fucking rotting?
Yeah, that would be something. But and basically once he comes back to life, it starts the main thing of, okay, well, he's a great fighter, but now because he was dead and came back to life, he can see demons and ghosts and stuff like that. So they're like, okay, you're going to be our new spirit detective. When demons escape from the underworld, you're going to, go wrangle them up and stuff like that. And it's it's a very traditional shonen stuff, but he's a really likable main character, faults and all. It feels really fresh even to this day. I like the animation, but by far one of the best things of it is it has, every anime has like a tournament arc, or a fighting anime does.
Mm-hmm.
This one has like the best one of all time in my opinion. And there's always the stereotypes or jokes of like, I'm only using 5% of my power, 10% of my power. The main villain in that arc, I want to say, is the origin of that, because his power, more or less, like he has a spiritual energy, but he also goes from like 6'5", skinny as a stick guy, to he can be like, okay, let's use 30% of my power, and then he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's use 50% of my power, and then he looks like some demonic muscle freak and stuff like that. So he would always be like, I'm only at 55% of my power. Oh, you almost made me use 70% of my power. But although it's kind of like funny and cringy to hear, like the way that it plays out is actually really good. The fights are good, the story is good, everything about it's so good, and it's such a classic all around that for me it has to break top 5.
Well, yeah, I think when something is so good, it potentially just starts an entire like trope, and who knows, maybe even did the tournament like thing for all we know. But like whether it popularized it or is the one that actually started it, it had to have done it really good if it had that big of an impact, and I'm sure the show is great.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So once again, quite a few episodes. So I don't think you'll ever get around to watching it, but if you do, it's a really weird number. It's like 113 or something.
That is strange.
Yeah.
But nah, I don't know. It's kind of hard living knowing that there's so many good things out there that just you and I will never experience, and other people are just enamored with. Like, who knows? Maybe this would be my favorite show ever, but in all likelihood, yeah, I'm never gonna watch it. So
Yeah.
it's strange.
But you will rewatch The Office for the third time.
I actually haven't rewatched The Office at all, surprisingly.
Oh, okay. Then go ahead.
But nah. Since you mentioned an anime for your number 5, for number 4, I'm gonna mention my favorite anime of all time.
Can I
It's
guess?
The North Star. Not just kidding.
No, I'm amazed you even know that thing's name, to be honest.
I think I've seen a scene of it. That's like the guy who like punches people in their body like just grotesquely. Like,
yeah, that's where the "you're already dead" comes from. He's punches them. It's like, huh, you're already dead, and then they like explode. It's like, oh shit. But
yeah, I've seen that scene, and that's all I know.
That's all you need to know, to be honest. But I gotta guess with you. Is it "I Want to Eat Your Pancreas"?
Yeah, it was actually a joke. I don't actually have an anime at number 4.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, as much as I would actually get the manga like book version of that rather than the
Anime
adaptation. Or
yeah,
anime. Yeah, just because I genuinely did prefer it. I'm not sure that cracked top 10, but I did genuinely love that. And I did think about
then
it.
what is your top 4? You debated me.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get my joke about Fist of the North Star.
Okay.
Number 4 for me, I'm gonna go with Bring Me the Horizon.
Oh, okay. The band.
Yeah, I wonder what else that would be, but yeah, the band.
Yeah.
They're my favorite band of all time, even if I haven't always been able to appreciate every release they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Just because on the one hand, their music is like really, it has emotional depth. I love the vocal ability, just everything about it. But what I particularly appreciate is how much they've been able to experiment and adapt throughout their time. They started as a deathcore band, which you could compare that to death metal.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they went to metalcore and kind of like revolutionized and made the scene. Everyone copied them, and like everyone's trying to be the next Bring Me the Horizon. So they're like, fuck that, we're out. We're gonna make rock music. And then their rock music, some of it was pretty good. And then they went to make pop music. Then they made some weird, I don't even know how to describe it, like ambient electronic music.
Okay.
And then now they're back. They made another metal album, and they just keep switching it up over and over. They never really do the same thing twice. And even if it doesn't always hit, I have so much respect. And when it does hit, oh my god, it hits. Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, which I know that you haven't listened to these people too much, and also I'm not saying it's 1-to-1, but it does kind of remind me. I grew up with Linkin Park a lot, and I feel like Linkin Park, going from Hybrid Theory to Meteora to just all of their different albums, there was some noticeable change where they tried out some more pop stuff. They tried out some more like electro beats and stuff like that, and it doesn't sound like they changed as much as Bring Me the Horizon has, but it's nice when people are willing to experiment, and it pays off for them, at least in some ways.
Yeah, because I've had bands where I like absolutely love an album, and then the next album's the exact same thing. I'm like, okay, it's pretty good, I guess. And they release another album, I'm like, okay, it's literally the exact same thing. I'm so done with this. So these people keep reinventing themselves over and over. So it feels like it's artistically driven too. It just really, I have a lot of respect for their music.
Okay, I'm glad. I can't wait until the Bring Me the Horizon X Yerin Beck collaboration.
Dude, do you know how much I would fucking love that and how confused I would be?
Very and very.
Yeah. Nah, they're gonna be in California soon. I'm not gonna see them like I mentioned, but I considered it. I would consider it.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, that was my number 4, right?
Yes, so now my number 4. Well, on the topic of deathcore.
Oh yeah, let's hear. Name me one deathcore group.
Let me not look that up in the background. Pay no attention to the keyboard sounds. Deathcore groups. I love me some Suicide Silence. I mean,
honestly, solid pick. I won't deny it.
Well, it was, in the top 10 of 100 best deathcore bands of all time. So I'm glad it was there.
If someone told me that was their favorite, I could respect that.
All right. Well, it's not my number 4, but my number 4, staying in my weep territory. With this one, I know you've heard me talk about. I even had a body pillow from it. Code Geass.
Yes, I'm very familiar with hearing you talk about it.
Yes, which Code Geass now has even, maybe is bumped up in some areas because it has mechs in it, like giant fighting robots, which that was for me, like, it was fine in the show, but I didn't care about it too much. But since I got into Gundam and building them and all that stuff, that probably helps even more. But yeah, just it's a very unique plot, very Death Note in ways people always compared it, of like you have this guy who has like good intentions for the world, but is also kind of a maniacal sociopath who is just trying to like kind of overthrow the world and start their own regime and all that stuff. And just so many aspects of it. I enjoy the animation. It has like one of the best English dubs of an anime, in my opinion. Just so many things. The story, the fights, the characters. It's just so good. I've rewatched it so many times. I think for one of my birthdays, I even had like my friend Matthew come over and we binge watched all 52 episodes over the course of 18 hours or something. Like I used to have a body pillow from it. I used to have a dog tag from it. Like that was the most I've ever gotten into a show.
No, I think it says something that still held up over those rewatches, because you expressed that concern over Parasite, but this is the gift that keeps on giving, and you even like said it retroactively got a bit better because of your interest in Gundam, so that like that it's getting even better. That's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it has been a few years since I've rewatched it, so I'll tell you, when I do, if the storyline holds up as much as I thought. But considering that I rewatched it, like 4 or 5 times, and it's 52 episodes, so it's not a short rewatch. It's not like rewatching a movie. So, I mean, if I enjoyed it every time of that, I don't see why I wouldn't at least enjoy it a good amount again watching it now. So,
yeah, I would certainly expect you to enjoy it again.
Yeah, this one is one of the ones where, like, out of anything on the list that I have here, this one I think you could get into. You wouldn't have to have any kind of, like, information beforehand. You wouldn't have to worry about this. I think the genre and all of that stuff are good enough for you, and it's not so long like some of the other ones where definitely if you ever have enough time to get in 50 episodes of an anime, this is one of my top recommendations for you personally.
Yeah, and to be fair, anytime you have mentioned to me something that you think I would like and I watch it, or play it or whatever, it hits pretty much every time. I can't really think of an instance where it didn't. So I definitely do trust you, and I will watch it one day.
Yeah, one day. We'll see. We'll have a podcast episode dedicated to that when it happens.
Yeah, and then it'll be us just geeking out for an hour.
Sure.
All right. Well, that was your number 4, and my number 3 is also about no, I'm not even gonna go on this joke anymore.
We're just gonna do it for every single one until we finish.
That is exactly what we're doing. All right, number 3. Ooh, man, this one I didn't order these particularly because this and something else, and I was wrestling with this, but I'm gonna say BoJack Horseman.
This was one of the ones where I had said before of there's some things in my mind that you're going to put in your top 10 list that I'd be amazed if they weren't on there. I was expecting this towards your top 3, so I am glad I was right on that.
This thing is just the depth of the characters, relationships, generational trauma. There's just so much damn depth to the show. Mm-hmm. And even if for a comedy, even if I don't think it's very funny, just the sheer character building, like, oh my God, it's hard to say I've seen much of anything with this level of complexity to it. Like, I fucking love the show. There's not enough good things I can say about it.
Yeah, I actually am curious. I forgot if you've done this or not, but you mentioned, I think you even mentioned this on the podcast last time, that you'll watch Spirited Away. It was good, but it was too hyped up. But you look at what the director's done and you find other things they've done that you like even more. With something like BoJack Horseman, with how much you have loved it, because you have loved it like every season of it, have you checked out the directors, the actors, anything from it, and seen if there's other things that might quench your thirst for that? Or is it just something that's kind of one of a kind from what you've seen?
So as far as I have looked into it, and from what I've seen, the creators have created another Netflix show called Tuka and Birdie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched it because admittedly, I've heard the show isn't that good. And I've heard various reasons for it, and I don't know how valid they are, but the thing is, like, BoJack, somehow I had hype going into it from what I had heard about it, and it lived up to the hype. Considering the show that people loved so much from the same creator is getting dogged on, it makes me a little hesitant to check it out, admittedly.
Yeah, especially if you loved the other show that much, then, it might let you down even more if you don't like this one.
Yeah, but we actually kind of talked about it before, where like expectations, how much you appreciate something. Ironically, I might like it considering I'm going in with basically zero expectations.
True.
But nah, I don't know. It's kind of hard when you find a show so good because it's like trying to scratch that itch. Like, what else is going to scratch it? There's comparable things for sure. It's just hard to find it.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Yeah. So BoJack, it has to be in my top 3. I don't think it would be a top 10 list for me without it.
I'd be amazed if it wasn't somewhere on your top 10 list. Well, for me, for number 3, something that I'm surprised that hasn't been on your top 10 list, and maybe it's coming in at 2 or 1, but I'm surprised. If it's not, tell me your reason for why not, because I know we both love it, is Nier Automata.
Okay, Nier Automata. I thought I was going to take my shot there. Yeah, you go into it, and then I'll discuss.
Yeah, Nier Automata it's a game, but it's more than a game, Jonathan. It's just, I mean, the gameplay of it is so much fun. It's, the storyline to it is good. And especially if you go into it, you go through it, you play it, you beat the game, and you're like, oh, that was pretty solid. That was like, graphics were great. The music was really good. The story seemed good. That was like a solid 8.5 out of 10 game. And then you go and you see, oh, it says continue. I wonder what I can do after the fact. And then it's like, oh, you play it from a different character's perspective. Oh, that's cool. It's pretty much a similar game. It's a little bit shorter because you're not going to replay the entire thing just from a different character's perspective. But yeah, it fills in some story gaps. That's a really cool thing. Bumps it to like a 9 out of 10 for me. And then you see, oh, you beat that and continue. And then you find out, shit, Act 3 is just, the game has more to the story, and it just wanted you to play through the two characters' perspectives first. And Act 3 is where shit gets real. Characters die, characters go through breakdowns, the story, just everything. The gameplay's still good, just the world building, this and that, and just everything about it. Like, I love everything about the game. The audio is so amazing. The different sites. I remember going to the desert and just thinking, this desert is beautiful. I remember going to like the worn down city that just has, overgrowth and animals, and I thought, this is beautiful. And like almost every location that you have to go to, everything about it is just so good. Like, for me, I have a hard time imagining a better game to be made, and it's just, it has to be in my top 3. Absolutely.
No, I remember there were 2 scenes in that game that just took my breath away. Like, I could not breathe. The first was during the start of Act 3. Finally, once shit goes down and you realize everything is falling apart, I believe it has a title screen roll where it says Nier Automata, and I was like, wait, the game is just now beginning. Everything before this, that was just the pretext, giving you some background. This is actually where it starts.
Absolutely. The only thing that I say is a downside, which isn't even a huge downside, but I got to play that without anyone telling me about like, oh, you have to hit continue, you have to do this. I was just like, oh, and I found it out for myself. And it almost has a nostalgia feeling, like going back to early, 2005, playing games on the GameCube or something, where like, no, you don't know about this stuff because there's no like YouTube boom of everybody streaming the game, releasing, walkthroughs and playthroughs. It's just like, if you figure something out, you figure it out by yourself. And I for me, having no expectation of, oh, this game is still going on, made it so much cooler, where if you're going into it like, oh, well, I know that something happens next. Oh, I know that, this. Not to say that that makes it worse, because it's still great, but having that surprise there for me just added to it that much more.
For sure. And I'm actually going to send you a YouTube video about this, because one of the people I watched, the guy who talks about like the psychology behind video games, he did an episode on this exact phenomenon and the psychological reasons behind it for Nier Automata. Like, it was one of the subjects that he, approached in it. And I think you would actually really like it, because it kind of describes why you feel that way.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll have to watch that video.
But yeah, the other scene, really quickly, just the one that took my breath away in that game, because I find it a funny story. Without spoiling too much for everybody, just the bit with Pascal and the decision that you have to make.
Oh yeah.
Okay, first off, the fight before that was like genuinely one of the most beautiful fights I've ever seen. Like, I was like, my breath was stolen from me. Like, what the hell? But then the decision you had to make, I had my PS4 in sleep mode for 2 days because I was debating the ethics and trying to figure out what to do. And like, it took me 2 days to come to a decision about what to do on it, and I still didn't feel good or confident in it. I was just like, I need this story to go on. So
Yeah.
after 2 days of basically doing nothing but wrestling with that question, I was able to do it. And I think that shows the impact the game had on me.
Oh, absolutely. I know for both of us it was huge, and I'll be surprised if it's not in your top two as you go in, and if not, then you'll have to let me know at the end of like why it doesn't even break a top 10 for you.
Well, funny story. My number 2 is Nier
Okay.
Replicant.
Oh, is it really?
It is.
Oh, okay. I thought you liked Automata more, so I'm interested why you put Replicant on there.
Well, one is just like I said, I didn't want to have the same thing, but I have a very interesting relationship between the two games. Automata, I think, is objectively the better game, zero doubt about it. It has the better side quests, better fighting mechanics, just I don't know, better fast travel system. I think it had, off the top of my head, I don't remember. Just a lot about the game is much better in Automata, but the actual story, okay, I know you haven't actually finished Replicant, so I'm not gonna like spoil the whole thing for you.
Yeah, shitty laptop is sad.
Yeah, but oh my god, talking about things living in my head rent free. Aside from Pascal living in my head for 2 days, I still think about Nier Replicant. I play its music in the background while I study, and then sometimes I just rewatch video clips of certain scenes because it's like, I don't know, that resonated with me and made me genuinely think about life and what it means to be a good person, bad person, my role in life, and like other people's lives, and like how I perceive other people and their motivations. Like, it has genuinely made me reassess life, and that's not an exaggeration. Like, it has made me change my worldview and reassess my own biases. The game had such a huge impact on me, and the story. I loved the cast in Automata, but I was definitely more attached to the cast in Replicant.
Well, I mean, for me, I was actually debating whether to put Replicant on the list or not as well, just because there are, I think that, like you said, Automata as a whole is a like more polished game, but they're androids or whatever in that, where in Replicant they are humans, and it is more of, I know that it's technically not the past, it's the future, but it's in a past scenario with like how society is and everything, but certain things that you just feel from and everything, it has more of just a human vibe to it, plus the fact that there's actually enough people around. There's some more conversations and side quests that come up that are like, okay, it's not just me and these little robots everywhere. But and I mean, the thing that I gotta say is the best is that the fishing in Replicant was better than it was in Automata, and I dedicated 10 hours of my time to max out my fishing for, all of this shit in Replicant. And if you can make a good fishing game in the middle of that, then you must be doing something right.
Man, that fishing side quest, man, that thing is like unexpectedly good. It had no right to be that good.
Yeah, even the storyline to the fishing side quest, it's just everything about it. It's our mutual friend Matthew. He has kind of a belief, which I'm not sure if I agree with 100%, but I can see where he comes from, which is, if a game has a fishing game, it's probably a good game, not because fishing is good, but because if you've already polished everything enough to the point where you're like, we need some mini games in here, let's add fishing, it's probably a pretty well polished game.
I actually, off the top of my head, I cannot think of any counter arguments, like any examples. So I gotta say it's true.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. He's got a good hypothesis there.
For sure. But for me to go into my number 2, which is also a game. Now, this is where some of my nostalgia comes into place, and I value my nostalgia. You even saw me go back and play this when we were living together, which was
Budokai Tenkaichi 3.
No, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's something where it's just like, especially for what, it came out in like 2003 or 2004, the graphics for it hold up to this day. The gameplay, I mean, it's the Zelda gameplay, I mean, it has changed a lot, but if you go to like the DS games and that stuff, it's a very similar gameplay type throughout the mechanics that you have in the storyline, but it's just so well polished. The adventure in it, like, it is the most open world minus minus, I guess, the one that came out for Switch. Prior to that, it was the most open world Zelda, where it's just like you are in the ocean and there's like 100 blocks that you can go on, and you can find islands. You can do this, like you truly feel like you're adventuring. Of like, oh, I found a treasure chest. Oh, it's 500 rupees. Oh, I have fire arrows now. I have this. Like the gameplay is good, the storyline is good, and the vibe that you get from playing it is just like part of it's the nostalgia, but part of it is just like something that the game brings itself that's hard for me to describe. But it feels so good while playing the game. Don't get me wrong, you saw while I played it, has certain faults of just like, God, why are the default controls inverted? And certain things, this and that. But as a whole, it's a super great game, and it has the nostalgia on top of that for me, where it has to be in my top 3.
Yeah, and one thing that I kind of appreciate about it watching you play, in which Legend of Zelda games are traditionally very good at anyways, but I love that if you wanted to, there was always more game. Like, if you want to get another heart, look, there's all these islands you can go to, but you don't have to do them to beat the game. But it's just, if you want more of it, here it is. And I think that if it's of a comparable quality, which in this case it is, I don't know, that's just a sign of a good game.
For sure. Something that I also want to add, which like adds to my appreciation to, which I know this isn't necessarily intended in the game, but speed running. It has a huge speedrunning scene for it, and it has some of the most like not technologically, technical skills that come into it, where there's something called super swimming, which you have to like move back and forth and pause on exact frame movements. That way, before you even get your boat, it doesn't cap out your maximum speed going backwards. So if you pause buffer it, you can essentially get negative speed of like 5,000 and like swim through the ocean backwards at like Mach 5 and get to places before you should be able to. And the skill that goes into it, and that's with pausing. You can do it manually, which is something called manual super swimming, and it's so ridiculous. I'm going to send you a picture, and anyone who wants to see this, look up Linkus Arm. He was like one of the first speedrunners to do this. This guy did manual super swimming for like 1 month, and this is what happened to his arms. And it's just like, man, if you don't think video games are a workout, then you got to get playing into Wind Waker speedrunning.
Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look. Oh, holy fuck. Wait, that is disproportionate.
It is very disproportionate. For anyone who's wondering what it looks like without actually looking it up, imagine the stereotype of like, the guy who's like, oh, what arm do you think I jerk off with? And you have the guy who's like, I got an Arnold Schwarzenegger arm, and on the other side, you got a Jonathan arm. Where, I mean, it's not quite to that extent, but it feels like that, where, I mean, just think about it. If you got to do a frame and it's a 30 FPS game or something, you have to do an exact input like 500 times on the exact frame, just back and forth with one arm. And speed runs, you're doing multiple runs a day. Like, you get a good workout in there.
I don't know how people do that, but damn, talk about a good workout idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang. Well, honestly, though, that's adding to it. It's just another unintended thing, but I can appreciate that.
For sure. Some of the best parts about games, movies, etc. are the unintended things that the community finds.
Yeah, honestly, it just kind of adds more fun to it. We've talked about it before, but one thing I always found cool was Pokemon Platinum and Diamond Pearl. You could do something called tweaking to like get the event legendary Pokemon, but it's kind of cool because it's like this unintended area of the game. You see things you're not supposed to do, and it's like, you could just give me the event item, but this is kind of a cooler way of doing it.
Oh, yeah. It's always cool with those games of that era where you can just break stuff in a way that doesn't make the game unfun. It just like adds to it as this thing. But Jonathan, we are at our top ones right now, so you got to let me know, what is it? Is it another Back to the Barnyard game?
Bro, let me tell you. No, I'm gonna give a few shout outs to honorable mentions here really quickly.
Fair enough.
Stuff that didn't make the list, and I'll just give each like a brief 1 minute reason, or maybe not even 1 minute. But I gave 5 honorable mentions. 1,000-foot crutch.
Oh, unironically or ironically?
Unironically.
Okay.
Still to this day, I can enjoy a lot of their music. Again, a band that changed their style a good bit. Started with kind of weird rap rock, changing new metal, changing to standard like rock, then metal again. Then it was just good music that was very foundational in setting the rest of my music taste, up until this point in my life. Like, without 1,000-foot crutch, I would not like the music I like today. Mm-hmm. So, shout out to TFK. Beyond that, I'm gonna say the Pokemon movies and animes.
Okay,
Um,
fair enough. I'm not sure if I agree with the anime as much, but the movies I can understand for the earlier
yeah,
ones.
I'm not gonna say they're like amazing or anything, but I appreciate how they made me like a game more than I should have. Because in retrospect, Pokemon games aren't that good, but I was in love with it probably because of how much I enjoyed those movies. To be honest.
Hey, fair enough. And I'm sure that just like with my Legend of Zelda pick, I'm sure you got some nostalgia that helps that out.
Yeah, for sure. Other than that, I'm gonna have to throw SpongeBob in here. Unironically, it's just
Okay.
those first 3 seasons, genuinely some of the funniest TV in my opinion.
Hey, I mean, just like people will shit on SpongeBob, people shit on The Simpsons. I mean, obviously they've been good enough where SpongeBob, like 25 years at this point, The Simpsons, what, like 35, 40 years at this point, where, like, whether they have their ups and downs, they've got to be doing something right if they've been on for that long.
Yeah, and just whenever I can drop a SpongeBob reference and someone gets it in 2022, I'm like, hey, you're one of my people.
Hey, I am your people.
Next one is probably my favorite anime, Samurai Champloo.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that you watched that. Yeah.
Yeah, just the peaks of it for sure are just some of the best peaks I've ever seen in any show. Just the sheer drama intensity and just layers and everything. But
Have you seen the sequel?
sequel
Sa-
to Samurai.
Yeah, Samurai Conditioner.
Moving on, but all jokes aside, honestly, the only reason I didn't include it is because, just episode to episode, it doesn't maintain that quality. It's still a good show, episode to episode, but not top
Mhm.
10 on terms of episode to episode.
Fair enough.
For my last honorable mention, I'm gonna say Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero.
Okay.
Wouldn't put it in my top 10 just because I haven't finished Zero yet, so maybe it colossally fucks up, though I doubt it.
Mhm.
But keep in mind I'm reading the visual novel, not watching the anime, so I can't give any opinion on the anime really.
Mhm.
But just probably the best visual novel I've ever read. It's made me cry many times. I just am so absorbed in the world. I actually care about what happens to the characters, but I also appreciate how slow moving it is. Like, I know slow is like a bad thing for shows sometimes, but it just gets me invested. Like, this is their day-to-day life. There are entire areas where it's just 3 days in the novel and nothing fucking happens aside from day-to-day life, and I fucking love it. It is the most slice of life thing I have ever read in my life, and I am all for it.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know and let us know what you think of Zero when you do end up finishing it.
Yeah, so far, unpopular opinion, I actually do like Zero a little more than the original.
Okay.
But who knows? Maybe we could drop the ball at the end.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, do you have some honorable mentions you want to mention, even if you didn't write them out, just some off the top of your head?
Nope, I refuse. If you want to be mentioned, be good enough to get in my top 10.
Shit, you got a point. Then I'll just jump straight to my number 1 then, if that's cool.
All right.
Better Call Saul.
Okay, I was thinking this might be on your list. I thought you maybe didn't add it because it was recent enough that you're like, I'm still getting off of the hype train or something. But the fact that it's your number 1, I knew you loved that show. I didn't realize it was that impactful for you.
I think so. I told you BoJack was my favorite show like many times over the past year or two.
Mm-hmm.
I think Better Call Saul is now my favorite show.
Really?
Like, it is transcendent for me. It is the best show I have ever seen, bar none. Like, period. Best show I've ever seen.
I'm curious because, like, BoJack, it does things in a great way, but it also has a lot of topics that I feel like you can personally relate to, where, just feel strong towards you. But Better Call Saul, I mean, the premise of it is that he's, like a lawyer or whatever. Yeah. So, like, does it go into that stuff that connects with you so deeply, or is it just made so well where if there's not even as much of a connection as there is with BoJack Horseman that you just appreciate it so much, or what is it for you?
It's a few things. First off, the acting is genuinely some of the best acting I've ever seen. I'm saying putting it up against like historically great actors. Like, this is some of the best I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And the chemistry between the characters, both romantic and otherwise, like, is just so believable. Like, it has my favorite romance of any show. Like, and it's not a great romance, I'll say that. But it's like, oh my God, I am attached. And then just, I think the thing I appreciate, BoJack had very real character dynamics, and it definitely showed the development over time in characters. But this one was just, it was both outlandish and believable. And this is a man who's been in a situation, and this is how he develops, and there were so many pivotal moments where the show makes you aware this is a turning point. It even has an episode called Bad Choice Road, where the character like talks about moments in your life where you have a choice to be a good person or a bad person, and it delves into the consequences, and everyone is held accountable up to the very end. Everything lands, everything sticks, and nothing disappoints.
Okay, well, man, I thought it would be in your top 10. I didn't realize it was going to be number 1, and it does make me curious of like, shit, if it's that high up, I might have to watch it at some point.
Honestly, like, oh my god, I recommend it. Granted, only downside is you do need a little requisite knowledge for the ending because of Breaking Bad, but you know, eh.
All right, fair enough.
Now, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is something that for me both hits the nostalgia button, but honestly, just like Wind Waker, I feel like is good enough that it deserves to be up here, but it does have a lot of prerequisites like Better Call Saul, which is Digimon Adventure, Last Evolution Kizuna.
That's a lot of words added on.
It is. So Digimon Adventure is the very first Digimon show that came out. It had the main characters of, like, if you've watched Digimon, and you're our age or older, or even a bit younger, these are probably the characters that you grew up knowing. And the thing about that is Digimon Adventure had those characters, and it went from there. Then Digimon Adventure 2, it had a couple of the characters were still main characters in Adventure 2, but it was mainly a new cast, and the other characters were still in the show. They were kind of like, oh, but we can't use our Digimon because insert things that happen here, but they would pop up from time to time, but they weren't the main characters. And then every Digimon after that was just kind of like, this series is standalone. We do not talk to the other characters, they don't exist in this world, etc., etc. Digimon Tamers is like that, Digimon Frontier, etc., etc. They're all very standalone. But Digimon Adventure, the original characters, since so many people grew up with them, and it's, in a lot of people's opinions, the best or one of the best Digimon series, ended up having them come back in a lot of movies, or if there was a special thing of like, oh, all of the main characters, at the end of this series go together as like this big special thing or something like that. Well, something that was so cool was that they had movies come out with these characters even after their series ended that kind of reflected the ages of their audience, where like in Pokemon, Ash is always 11 or however old he is for the past 20 years, where Digimon, even though it's not exactly one-to-one with how long it takes and how old they should be, of Digimon Adventure ends with them at like 10 years old. Digimon, I forget the name of it, but there's a set of like 3 movies that they did for the 15th year anniversary where they're all in high school, and they're like, oh, we're kind of grown up now, we're, hormones, this and that, and like, where do I want to go for college? And Digimon Adventure Last Evolution Kizuna is the final movie with the main characters, specifically the 2 main characters that they tended to focus on the show rather than like the 5 or 6 that there is as a whole, where they're both in their last year of college. This came out in 2020, which was when I was in my coming up on my last year of college, or I guess my final year of college started in that semester. But and they're like, man, I don't know what I want to do with my life. When I was a kid, there was this and that every day was kind of an adventure, where now it's just like, shit, I got to get a job. I got to think about this. What do I want to do for the rest of my life? I'm still kind of like, out here being a hero with my Digimon from time to time, but I'm not sure how this is going to play into my daily life. And basically they find out of like, oh, when you grow up, Digimon are kind of like a representation of your potential to grow. And once you've kind of reached that potential and you're not growing anymore, your Digimon, basically, with how it is shown in it, because this one is not like made for kids as much, it's like they die more or less, like they just cease to exist. So basically the 2 main characters get a timer on their thing that's like, your Digimon's days are numbered more or less, and you don't know how long it's going to be, but get ready to say goodbye. And they had their Digimon since they were children. I grew up watching Digimon, so it has that emotional attachment. It's like building 15 years of emotional attachment for me as someone who watched the stuff, which as a series is great anyway. And yeah, it basically just shows all of the stuff that happens. They have their big final battle, and at the end, there's just this really, really emotional scene where one of the 2 main characters always used to play harmonica. He always wanted to, be a musician of some sort, but he kind of gave it up. But after the big final battle and the main characters and their Digimon, they're not next to each other, but it's going back and forth between them, and the one guy is just playing this harmonica, and there is no background noise beyond that, of just like this light harmonica noise with this sad undertone to it. And they're just talking about like, oh, we've had all of these years together, and it's just like, oh, what do you want to do tomorrow? And then you look over to the side and you kind of see like a butterfly fly by, and you see this like energy go into the air, and it's just like, shit, for them there is no tomorrow. Like, they had to grow up at some point, and it's something where growing up with this, it really speaks to you, where like, dude, I'm even tearing up just thinking about it right now. I will occasionally watch that scene and just like cry about it, because it is so, like, the music for it, growing up with it, it's not just nostalgia. Like, it is made very well. The original show was made well, where like, I always preferred Digimon over Pokemon, where Pokemon, maybe the world was cooler, but Digimon, the characters had like traits that they grew up on. It was focused on them and their Digimon, where Pokemon is focused on the Pokemon. No one really gives a shit about Ash as a character. So it was just like this kind of seeing the characters grow up and being like, my time as a hero is done, and it's not coming back, and you got to take another step forward and not just live in the past, because that's kind of what the villain was doing, of just like, oh, I want to create a world where we can all live with our Digimon forever, but essentially no one ever dies, no one ever moves on. It's just like, life is important because things come to an end. And it's just like getting that out of Digimon, of all things. It's like, people who weren't Digimon fans or don't keep up with it, it's just like, damn, that sounds really deep for something like that. But me having always been a Digimon fan, and then having this being something that's just like, they're graduating college at the same time I'm graduating college, and all of this shit, like, it hits home for me so hard.
Dude, how hard was it to say goodbye and see the end? Like,
I
can imagine, because you had like probably at least a decade sunk into this.
Oh yeah, I did, absolutely. And I mean, but it's one of those things where it is bittersweet, where like, man, I bawl like a baby every time I see that scene where the harmonica plays, and then they look over, the Digimon disappear, and then there is no music whatsoever, and it's just them bawling their eyes out. But that's the thing that makes it valuable, is like, if just like Pokemon, of like, oh, they stay 10 years old forever and they always have adventures with their Digimon, then the value gets lost, because like I said before, the thing that gives life value is that there's death. I mean, that's just how it works. So yeah, as a whole, like, between nostalgia, it matching up with my life, and then just it being great overall, that has to be my number one.
Fair enough, but man, I hate that all good things must come to an end.
Yes.
Like, I love it, but I hate it.
Much like this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Oh man, dude, those are some solid top 10s, but man, I don't know where to go from here. I feel empty now.
Oh yeah, well, we'll leave everyone else feeling empty too, because we are here on 90 minutes, one of our longer episodes. But I cannot wait until podcast episode 100, where I'll come back to you with top 100 list.
Oh God, I don't. Let's just scale this up proportionately and see how much time it'll take.
Yeah, number 96, McDonald's spicy chicken nuggets. I don't know, man. I was running out of things.
Dude, if I had to make a top 100 favorite things, McDonald's wouldn't be in the top 1,000.
Oh shit, you're gonna start some fights here if anyone actually listened this long. But yeah, I don't know. Any closing statements, or leave it here?
I guess the one thing I will say is, if you couldn't tell, I was trying to avoid duplicates like within the same universe on a list. Otherwise, I'd have Nier Replicant and Nier Automata, or Better Call
As did
Saul,
I. As did I.
Yeah. So it was just kind of interesting being like, I got to make a tough choice here,
Mm-hmm. For sure. It's always interesting, especially like with you and I knowing each other as well as we do. There were certain things that I knew were going to be on your top 10s list, but there were certain things that I was interested that did pop up, or, the places that they popped up at.
Yeah, like Barnyard.
Yeah, well, I hate that that's serious for you, because I know you say it in a way to piss me off, but I know that you actually do like it enough.
Dude, that game, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go look up at all your Barnyard stuff now. I'll try to truly appreciate it as much as you do. So, till next time, Jonathan. Ta-ta for now.
Two for Newt.